This is Kasim with Solutions 8, and today I want to talk to you about how to write ad copy for Google Ads search. Now, keep in mind this video is specifically about writing ad copy for Google Ads because it's intent-based, meaning somebody's looking for a solution and you are there to provide that solution for them to them. So if you're looking for ad copy writing for outbound or display or just another implementation, this probably isn't the best video for you just because the paradigm is so different. Inbound traffic is way different than outbound traffic because we're not interrupting them. So just wanted to give you a heads up. Just to give you a sense as to the cadence of the video, the first thing I'm going to talk about are just the technical implementation. How to write new ads, some of the breakdowns, character limitations, etc. We're doing expanded text ads specifically. I'm not going to dive into responsive ads or any of the other sort of more specialized types of ads right now. I just want to do the core ad type inside of Google Ads really are the text ads. So that will be the focus. Once we have the technical implementation down, I'll walk through some best practices, and then I'll get into kind of the strategic recommendations that we make, like the tactical things, the psychology behind writing really good ads, and some pro tips that I've either discovered myself or I've shamelessly stolen from other people, which is what good marketing is all about. So let's dive into it. You're going to jump into the Googles. Inside your Google Ad account, you're going to go to Ads and Extensions, click on Ads. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Click your little plus button. We're going to add a text ad. It's going to ask you the campaigns to choose. I'm just going to choose these at random. So right out of the gate, a couple of things to pay attention to. These will be blurred out, but you can see that Google's telling me what ad group I'm writing this ad for and also the keywords associated with this ad group. That's just a helpful thing to keep in mind when you're writing your ads. Your ad groups should be broken down in a way that makes sure you're not trying to fit too many keywords into a single ad group. So you want 10 to 15 keywords per ad group, which is a general rule that sometimes ends up being broken, and there's a bunch of reasons to break that. So don't take that as ubiquitous truth, but roughly speaking, and hopefully those keywords are all thematically similar. So don't get too expansive in your ad groups. If you are being expensive, speaking to different services, offers, unique selling propositions, etc., then maybe it's a good sign that you need a separate ad group for that. But this is just nice reference material for you. I always come in here and I turn off the highlight because I don't like it. I don't like the way that it shows the ad. And when we start to create this ad, you're going to see that you can kind of see what it looks like here. So I turn the highlight off just because I think it looks more like it's going to look when you see it inside the newsfeed on both levels, actually. So we're going to look at the mobile for now. A couple of things. Your final URL, this is where we're actually sending people. So the final URL, interestingly, is not what they're going to see in the ad. And that will give you your first indication as to how granular this is going to get. The display URL, believe it or not, is a really big deal. And can help you with things like click-through rates, engagement, etc. People tend to look at the display URL when they're seeking specificity. So you can use this as an opportunity to improve your ad copy, but it's not going to happen here. The final URL is where your ads are actually going. And one pro tip from Google is to make sure that you're using HTTPS because in a lot of browsers, you end up getting an error thrown if you're not using it secure, if you don't have an SSL certificate applied. So just mild pro tip. I've got my URL there. And generally speaking, you should probably be sending people to a page specific to the ad. Because our agency's so niche down, my homepage speaks directly to my value proposition, which is just Google Ads Management. So I could send somebody to my homepage with relative ease. You might not necessarily be in that position. So the final URL should be where you would want that person to go as an end result. So if you've got products or services pages, go to the service specific to this particular ad group. Moving on. Now we're actually going to write some ad copy. You'll notice that you have 3 headlines here. Headline number 3 is new, well, relatively new in the world of Google. It hasn't always been there. What's worth noting, you have 30 character limitations. So that's relatively short, but there's actually a lot that you could do inside of 30 characters. But what's worth noting is headline number 3 isn't always going to show up. So one of the mistakes that we made actually, and knowing this rule, by the way, was just a total brain fart, is we had a sequence of headlines that only made sense if they were all together. And headline number 2 asked a question that headline number 3 answered. And what was hysterical about it is headline number 3 wasn't showing up as often. which had to do with various things, including ad relevance and rank. But we found that it had a really strong click-through rate, and I think it's because people really wanted to know the answer to that question as soon as it was going to be on the landing page. So I'm not recommending that you do that necessarily. It's not a best practice altogether, but it was an interesting learning lesson. But realize that headline number 3 may be shown and may not be shown, just depending on the way that Google tends or chooses to manifest that particular ad, and it changes every single time the ad is shown, just like ad extensions. So when you're building your headlines, try to reach your 30 character max, but headlines 1 and 2 will always be shown, and headline number 3 is not necessarily going to be shown. A couple of things to know while you're building your headlines, and I'm going to come in here and just look at Google's examples so I can steal one just to make it easy. So here we've got real estate rentals in NYC, and Google's done something here. They're using typecase, which means the very first letter in the word is capitalized. And that's really important for click-through rate. You'd be actually pretty surprised at how much that helps to increase your click-through rate using typecase. Now, Google's lost 4 characters here. I'm not telling you that you need to be obsessive and fill every single character every single time. But what I am saying is it's worth trying to occupy as much space as you possibly can occupy. So 4 characters isn't that big a deal, but don't leave too much cash on the table here, because this is all relevant to making sure that your ad copy has is as good as it's going to get. So I'm not telling you that I like the ad copy that Google has here. I'm just using what they have just so we can kind of see how we would fill this out as we're going. We'll talk about ad copy strategy later. One thing that they have done well that I will mention is they're using a number. And using numbers in your ad copy, I think it's 200%. I think it's a WordStream statistic. Using numbers in your ad copy increases your click-through rate by 200%. So you want to see prices, percentages, totals. So if I had a price to offer, let's say this could be the minute you have a $sign in there, you'll notice too that there's something about this, like browse apartments, $199 each. Of course, everybody wants a $200 apartment, so ignore the context. Just pay attention to the formatting, but it's the numbers that pop out at you first. So using numeric values, and it's also one of the places where Google allows some special characters. So you can use $signs, percentage signs, etc. Google tends to stay away from special characters if used in excess, so be careful there. It also tends to stay away from excessive capitalization. So I've actually gotten nailed on just saying free in all caps, which in an interesting twist of fate, you will see some ads get away with all caps and some ads don't. There appears to be no rhyme or reason algorithmically as to why they let some people slide and other people get penalized. I'm sure there's purpose behind it. I just don't always understand it. So I often get clients that ask like, well, my competitor is doing this, and the hard answer there is, yeah, they shouldn't be. They're going to get penalized. So just follow the rules is a good rule of thumb for anything that Google can catch with its bots, because otherwise you're begging for penalization, and too many account suspensions are going to put you in a position where you're just not going to be able to run any longer. So not to scare you off here, you shouldn't run into that issue just with some rogue ad copy. But we've got our ad copy here. What did that say? Yeah, browse apartments online. We have our 3 headlines, and remember, this is the headline that wouldn't have shown up. So you have to look at these things and prioritize them and decide which one you want to use. Moving on from headlines, display path. This is the URL that they see visually. And a couple of little pro tips here is you can use dashes. And what's kind of cool about dashes, especially if you have products. So, let's say that we were selling shoes, you could just have shoes here. But what I would rather do is say women's shoes. And if you wanted to, you could say, and now what you'll notice is I've expanded this URL, and I've included, let's say that this ad group was specifically tailored for petite shoes. This is something that's really helpful to let somebody know that when I go to that website, I'm going to see exactly what it is that I'm looking for. One mild pro tip for you, and not something to concern yourself with too much, but people will actually visit these URLs, and we've seen very small upticks in analytics when we're monitoring the pages that people are heading to. And so if there's no page there, make sure that you've got a solid redirect, or at least a good 404 page. But you shouldn't get too much traffic to the display URL, but it is worth noting that there's a fraction of a percent of people that for whatever reason they decide to plug that in directly. So make sure it's not a complete dead end. But use your display path to speak specifically to what it is that they're going to get. The more specificity you provide, the better your ad is going to perform. Descriptions. This is where people spend the most time. But what's worth noting is there's a hierarchy of importance with ad copy. If your title isn't good, they're not going to read the descriptions. And in my experience, the visuals, if you ignore extensions, typically go title, description, URL. So they're going to look at the title first. If it captures their attention, they're going to skim the description. They are not going to read the whole thing. So your description, and you'll notice that good ad copy, and I bet you Google's examples have it, tends to be broken up into kind of what looks like bullet points. Photos, floor plans, pricing, and more. So that's kind of bullet point-y. It's a list. Apply for campus or online courses of your choice. It's a little long, but that's okay. Request information today. That's a bullet point. Flexible interactive programs. So let me find something that I really like. This is better. Great warranties on your plumbing. Flat rate price. Upfront. Rapid response. So, just little snippets that they can just kind of skim over, because if you offer them a paragraph, they're not going to read it. And you can see visually where you're getting snippets and where you're getting just blocks of text. So again, use all 90 characters that you've got, but don't overwhelm your users here. Let's see if this is it. Oops. It's embarrassing when people are watching you. 72 characters. Come on, Google. Cool. You can use exclamation points, by the way, which is kind of nifty. And then let's do an extra space in there. So now I've got my URL, my 3 titles, and this is the expanded text ad because we're using the 3rd title. My 2 descriptions. URL options we're going to ignore because this is about conversion values. So we're not necessarily playing the UTM game or whatever. And then you get to see the way that it looks. We're not going to go over it in this video because it's a different facet of the ad creation, but you cannot ignore extensions. Extensions are as important as any other facet of your ad, not just because of what people see, but also because Google tends to prioritize campaigns with extensions, and the more extensions, the better. As a matter of fact, the biggest change they made to their ad rank algorithm was when they brought in, according to them, when they brought in extensions and started incorporating the expected performance of extensions inside of whether or not you're going to be shown. So it factors in your quality score. So as many extensions as you can use, and the more the better. And we've got videos on ad extensions too, if you'd like to traverse some of those videos. But what we've got here is the builder. I actually don't use when we're writing ads, I'm not always using the ad builder here. It's a little more difficult. I like Google Ads Editor, which is a downloadable software that you can have that will integrate with all of your campaigns. So, just mild pro tip for you if you want to go play with Google Ads Editor. It's worth doing because I think it makes it a lot easier. I actually like the preview tool better, but I just wanted you to see what it looks like inside the dashboard so that you had a sense of it. So now that I've gone over that, let me bring this over here. So I've got just some things I wanted to make sure that I touched upon. We talked about having the 3 headlines, 2 being critical, 1 being, may or may not show up. In your description using bullet points, how to use the display URL, the fact that you need title case across all ads. I think that's really critical. Using numbers in your title specifically improves CTR by 200+%. We talked about the hierarchy, which is great. Oh, including your keywords. So that's really interesting. You can, and check this out, this is so nifty. So if you open squiggly bracket, you can have 3 types of sort of dynamic insertion. And here we have keyword insertion. So you can choose the keyword, the text that's going to show up if the keyword isn't necessarily for whatever reason accessible or available, but you can allow the keyword that triggered this ad to be inserted in your ad copy. And so, if they were looking for shoes, you'd say looking for, and then we would insert our keyword. And I'll say title case. apply. And so now it's looking for a keyword, and if the keyword for whatever reason isn't accessible, then we're going to say women's shoes. I don't know what they had there. I don't know how to do 4 characters. Oh, you know what we're going to need is a question mark, because the keyword isn't necessarily going to have the question mark. But what that's going to do is that's going to double up on my question marks here. So I'm going to delete it. Bam, disaster averted. So that's the keyword insertion. A couple of the other insertions that are kind of nifty. The countdown timer, I think, is amazing. Google keeps you honest. You can't have a rolling countdown timer. They're actually asking you to pick a date, which I think is kind of cool. So you can choose to change this if you'd like to. I've not played with that, but it's not quite as dynamic as something like ClickFunnels that's going to be able to base the countdown off of like that user's engagement or whatever. But the countdown timer is kind of nifty. And then the thing that's really cool is they have an if function. So and the if function allows for audiences. So you can change what they're seeing with device, but more importantly, you can change what they're seeing with audience. Now, this only allows you to use your remarketing audiences. Sadly, you can't use like in-market audiences, which would be amazing, but probably a breach of privacy concerns, I'm sure. But what's cool about using your in-market audience, or excuse me, your remarketing audiences, if you're using your remarketing audience as well, one of the things that I saw that was really nifty that somebody did is they took their anybody who'd watched a YouTube video, created an audience, and then anybody who landed on that audience saw the ad copy. It would say, "You've seen the video, now demo the product," or whatever. And I think that's that type of thing that just gives them a sense that you're walking them through this path. It could be really, really powerful. So we use keyword insertion. I don't use a countdown timer much, to be honest with you, much at all, really. I can think of like one use case. And it's not to say that it's not a good tool, but it just doesn't come up often enough. So I can't speak to it much. But I think this if function is just wicked ninja. So make sure you're playing with that at a minimum. So including keywords, you can include the keyword once, twice, maybe 3 times. Definitely not on the title. I think, include it in one of the titles, and then in the description, you might be able to double up depending on how organic it is. But do not keyword fluff. It's not going to help your quality score. You might have heard that elsewhere. It's a lie. Having your keyword can be helpful, but having it multiple times can only, if it's not organic, can only hurt you. And then with your ad copy, maintain continuity with your landing page. So, I'm sending them to Solate.com. So I need to make sure that the description, the offer, the value proposition, the things that I'm offering, you're basically preparing them for what they're about to see. And continuity is critically important here. You're building trust with these people. So they search for something. They said, I need women's shoes. And then they found an ad saying, hey, we've got women's shoes. And when they go to the page, they should see women's shoes. We've all had the experience where you search for something, you see the ad that says you're going to get that thing, and then you go to the site and it's not. Like, they might even have that thing on the site, but now you have to find it. And you're like, well, you couldn't have just taken me there. It tends to happen with much bigger brands that, they're building campaigns in mass, and they're not being as specific as they need to. So just make sure that you're drawing from the landing page that you're sending people to. And it's worth building out landing pages per ad group if necessary. If you have a ton of ad groups, don't do it right out of the gate. See which ones are performing the best for you. You could waste a ton of time. But that continuity can be critically important for conversions. Quality score too, on-page experience. Google's using your landing page as a litmus test as to whether or not they're even going to show you, and if they show you, what they're going to charge you. So invest there. You have to always be testing. So you have to split test your ads. The Google recommended best practice is 2 expanded text ads and 1 responsive ad. Responsive ads are actually pretty easy to build. It's the Frankenstein of ads. You're just giving Google a bunch of building blocks. As a matter of fact, let's just do one. So we've got videos on responsive search ads, so I'm not going to dive too deep, but just to give you a sense as to what's going on. Same story here, funnel URL, display URL, but now we're giving Google multiple headlines to draw from, and Google is building the ad in real time, and they're building the ad based off of what they know about that particular prospect, which is actually really creepy. So Google knows things like what verbs you resonate with the most, apparently. They have 70 million demographic and psychographic profiling factors, and they're using all of these factors in order to get a better sense as to who you are as a person, and they're doing a really good job at it. So you insert all of these headlines, And the list is pretty expansive. I forgot what the limitation is, but it's unlikely that you run out, to be frank. And then you add descriptions, and again, so it's 4 descriptions. URL options, again, we're going to ignore, but this is a responsive text ad. So you want to build 2 expanded text ads, 1 responsive ad, and you're testing those 3 against each other. And interestingly, the responsive ad generally wins. Some of the same rules apply for responsive. For inclusions, I think it's only keyword. No. So they used to limit this. This is so cool. I didn't realize the countdown was even available instead of responsive, to be honest with you. But keyword insertion and, oh yeah, they don't have the if. It's location insertion, which is nifty. I haven't used that either. Egg on my face there. Oh, you have to have a clear call to action. So one of the things that gets really frustrating in ad copy, and to be honest with you, I saw it in Google's example ad copy. Let's close this out. Yes, we're going to leave. Let's go back. Text ad. When you look at Google's examples, browse apartments online, that's a call to action, kind of, but it's also sort of just something that you can do. So, here's their call to action. Contact us today about scheduling a tour. But I mean, you don't want that sort of front and center, I think. Call to action inside of the title. Don't wait, sign up today. That's fine. This is maybe a mildly better. Secure your files and photos. So what I like about this is this sort of plays on, it's gain, logic, or fear. Those are the 3 really strongest buying signals, and this is playing on fear because you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to lose. Data loss is something that I'm afraid of. Prepare for outdoor adventures. That's not a great call to action. Find men's hiking shoes is a little bit better. But the point is with search with intent, you don't want to be cute. Onyx and Gall says that marketing is not a creative endeavor. It's a data-driven endeavor with creative elements. And this is a perfect example of that. You have to be direct. They're at the bottom of the sales funnel. At the top of the sales funnel, you can be cute. You can be creative. You can be a little cryptic. But when somebody's at the bottom of the sales funnel and they're looking for airline tickets, now is not the time to come up with like a fun, interesting way to say that, because you have a fraction of a second before they just skip right over your ad and go over to the next ad. So offer really strong, clear calls to action. Request your action plan today, sign up for a free consultation. Let them know what it is you want them to do and how to buy, really. Here's the strategy, the tactical stuff that I was talking about. The first most important thing, and then maybe the second, third, and all the way through 50th, if you take nothing else away from this video, empathy is the most powerful word in the English language. It's the most important skill to cultivate as a marketer and maybe just a human. And it's just putting yourself in other people's shoes. These aren't lemmings that you're trying to drive in mass, down your conversion hill. This is a real life human being, and they have a problem. And you have the ability to help them solve their problem. And if you don't, you shouldn't be in business, because that's what we're doing here. This is all about solutions. You need to be the solution. So empathize with this prospect. Where are they? What are they dealing with? What? How does this problem impact their day-to-day life? What would a solution mean to them? That's a great piece of ad copy. Helping them articulate the end result, like when you get to the end of it, and even asking questions. You'll notice that one of the pro tips here is ask questions. One piece of ad copy I saw recently that I thought was so compelling, it was something to the effect of, how would financial freedom feel? And like, gosh, what an amazing question, especially for somebody who's struggling financially, depending on your avatar. Getting into the hearts and minds of the people that you're targeting. We've talked a lot in some of the various videos about making sure you understand your avatar. So I won't beat that drum too hard here, but it's such a prerequisite. You have to know these people enough to really care about them. And if you don't deserve to serve them. You don't deserve to market to them. It's not your place. The person that deserves this opportunity is the person that actually cares about this, small business owner, or this, new mom, or this person who wants to travel. And if that sounds dramatic to you too, I don't think you're taking this seriously enough. Google is the world's strongest indication of intent, and it's one of the most intimate. It's one of the most intimate, outwardly articulated psychological endeavors that people take, which is to search. It's everything that you're afraid of, worried about. If you don't believe me, if you think what I just said is melodramatic, to do this, go to the first random stranger that you see and allow them to page through your search history. There's no way, right? Like, there's no way you would ever do that. It's because it's so personal. And I mean, I look at my search history sometimes and I'm just blown away by how weird some of it is. And, the random thoughts that pop in your mind, or how, if the thing that you're concerned about most, when my kids get sick, when we brought my first son home from the hospital, he had an odd discharge from his nose that freaked me out. And the very first thing I went to Google, and it explained that it was actually normal for a newborn and whatever, and even had pictures. But that type of before I called 911, I went straight to Google. Not that it was a 911 scenario. I'm not telling you to go to Google before you call 911, but I'm just saying that think about how important this ecosystem is to people, the information that they get from it, and the way that they treat it, how personal the responses are. And if you can place yourself in that frame of mind, you're going to produce better ad copy. Speak to them like they're a human you care about, and they should be. And so come from that place of empathy. How are they feeling? Are they feeling, are they excited? I'm about to go on a trip. I want to book a cruise. Are they scared? Like, gosh, debt relief, help. Are they nervous? Are they worried? Do they not know what's going on? Are they confused? Get into their minds and then articulate that through your ad copy, which once you've assumed their frame of mind tends to be pretty easy to do. So get a really solid sense of who they are. We talked about understanding ad copy hierarchy already. Yeah, we did. That was a double up. Forgive me. Be direct. Don't be cute. There's nothing wrong with being cute if you can be cute in addition to being direct. But direct is greater than cute. So direct first, and then if there's a way to be cute, be cute. And some of my ad copy is kind of creative. I mean, I'm not telling you not to just throw creativity out of the window, but if you got 30 characters, you need to really hit the nail on the head as far as what it is that you're offering. Make sure you're highlighting your unique selling propositions. The thing that sucks about Google Ads is you're showing up next to 3 of your other competitors potentially. So if you're a plumber and every other plumber up there has, same day service, cost-effective rates, BBB accredited, whatever. Well, yeah, who cares? But the minute you drop up there and you say unique XYZ technology, or whatever's unique to you, like 25 years in the business, family owned and operated, like figure out what it is that is unique to you that would appeal to your avatar, and make sure that that's readily available in your ads, because it is a competitive ecosystem and you need to set yourself apart. So you're not just selling yourself, you're also selling against. So you're not selling to, you're selling to and selling against. So be prepared for that. I love asking questions in ads. I'm not saying they always work, but questions capture people's attention. And you're forced, whenever you see a question, that's why I made this a question, by the way, because it's technically not a question, it's a recommendation. But whenever you see a question, you kind of begin answering it automatically, regardless of whether or not you really want to. So asking questions is a really good way to start that journey before they even click. And again, that one example that I gave you, things like that. What would financial freedom feel like? I think that's a really good, I don't remember where I saw that. To be frank, I don't even remember if it was a Google ad. It might have been a Facebook ad. But the point stands. The other thing that you can do in ad copy is confront objections. One of the ways we do this is we just list our prices in the ad copy. Or, I'll say 3-month minimum commitment. Sometimes adding a little bit in the way of, language like that both attracts and repels helps to not just qualify your prospects, but, properly manage expectations, bring in a more qualified consumer, training people to be a good customer. So don't try to hide the things that are going to potentially stop a sale. Sometimes it's better if somebody's on the phone with you, obviously, because then you can explain why that objection might exist. But if you can confront objections, just have right at it, especially if they're industry-based objections. So, if you're a mechanic, people have a tough time going to the mechanic. And it's okay for you to say things like, transparency matters. The type of thing that I might be concerned of, you can just put the cards on the table, and talk about the type of mechanic you'd send your mom to. Be concise, mention this, bullet points, lists, really helpful. You'll see that in things like structured snippets and, some of the ad extensions that are available. But do that in the ad copy too. Be specific. We talked about it a little bit already with direct. If you can't get specific enough, your ad groups are probably too broad. So apply some specificity. One of the things, and I'm maybe the most guilty person of this in the world, left brain people like to list features. there's a saying in marketing: features tell, benefits sell. You don't want to tell them like, oh, this phone has this much memory. You might want to say like a limitless ability to capture your memories or whatever. And you can tell I'm not good at this because this is where I struggle. But speak to the end result. Ryan Dice has this phenomenal quote, and I tried to find it before this so I could write it down, but I couldn't track it down. But the gist was, good ad copy simply articulates the shift in the before state and the after state. So you're just going to tell people, before you had this thing, you were here. Now when you have this thing, you're going to be here. So speak to the benefit, speak to the end result, speak to the change. That's how you really capture people. That's where you kind of dive into the emotion. One thing too, and I'm stealing this from Jeff Walker. Jeff Walker's product launch formula. He has this PSP sort of stacking. It's this problem stacking that he does. He does it in email. So you get an email from Jeff, and it's like, hey, you've got this problem, and that's okay because I've got a solution. And tomorrow I'm going to send you a whole breakdown on what that is. And then you open up the email, and it's got the solution, which is great. You're super grateful for it. But then at the bottom of it, he's seeded another problem. And he's like, now that you've solved this problem, now that you've solved your hiring problem, I'm sure I have no doubt you have a training problem. Well, in tomorrow's email, I'm going to teach you how to solve that training problem. And then you open up that email, and he has the solution to the training problem, but then he's seeded another problem. So he's doing this, this problem solution back and forth, and stacking them in a way that continues you down this journey. You can do this in your ad copy. You can, in some instances, even provide solutions in your ad copy. And the way to do that, just to give an example, one of the things we had a campaign built specifically in our website rebuilds when we used to provide that service as an agency. And there would be one of our higher performing long tail keywords were the WordPress error codes. And some error codes meant, catastrophic error, you're better off rebuilding. And one of the things that we could do is, if somebody's searching for that error code, they're actually searching for a fix. And we might pivot to, hey, if you're seeing this, it's time to rebuild. And you just searched for a problem, and I just gave you a solution. And then when you go to my landing page, now, the solution is maybe expanded upon, but then I have another problem that I offer you up, and the promise of a solution for you to convert into. So just realize that you can begin that problem solution cadence. And as soon as you can contextualize yourself as a solution provider inside the mind of somebody who's engaging with your media, they're already kind of your customer in a way. It's a really good way to think about it. They're paying you attention, and you're returning solutions. And if you can keep that going, the amount of attention increases up to and hopefully including money. And so too, of course, do the solutions increase. Already talked about extensions. Use extensions to infinity and beyond. Not only is there no excuse not to, but you're going to get penalized for not doing so. Your ads just aren't going to show up as often. Your quality score is going to be lower, etc. Talked about the dynamic ad features, including keywords and the if this then that stuff. Some stuff. I got this from WordStream, and I have a love-hate relationship with WordStream. I love their content. Some of their analysis is great. Some of the recommendations I not just don't agree with, I strongly disagree with. So please don't take this as tacit approval of everything that WordStream produces. I think they've got some great content, and I don't have all of it, and I want to be a good guy and properly source them, but I also don't want to just sit here and beat the WordStream drum, because there's enough about what they say that I don't think should be followed. All of that said, WordStream did a study. I've linked to it in this slide. I'll make sure to put a link inside the description of the video. They did a study. They analyzed, I think it was 600 ads, and they found the top performing calls to action across all ads. And get is your highest performing verb, followed by buy, then shop, then try, all the way down to click. Now, here's what's really interesting, and this is worth noting. I remember, and this was years ago, this has to be more than 6 years ago, but I used to do a talk. It was part of one of my, do on the speaking circuit. I used to do a talk about conversion optimization, and click here used to be the highest performing call to action. And now it appears to be the lowest performing call to action. So I think what that can tell us, and you already know this, but people sort of get acclimated to things that work, and then they stop working because folks figure it out. So when click here was the highest performing call to action, chances are everybody and their brother put click here in their ad copy. Well, over time, they diluted the efficacy of it so much that it just doesn't perform anymore. I remember another thing happening where I think this was a HubSpot study. HubSpot did a study on the highest performing email subject lines. And if you included watch, the word watch, so like watch this video, watch how we do this. If you included the word watch, you got I forgot what the lift was, but it was a massive lift in open rates. And it's because people like to watch videos. Well, so many people did that, and it wasn't long. It was like 2 years later to where watch was nowhere on the high performing list. So don't take this as gospel, because it's not. This right now is just a good indication of what's working. Having some really strong verbs in there, I think obviously is really important. But test for yourself and make sure you keep an eye on everything that's going on. In the same article, WordStream talked about the top performing non-CTA words, which I thought was interesting. Some of these I wouldn't even work to incorporate. So for instance, I don't think shipping's a top performing word because people like to see shipping. I think it's a top performing word because it's included in a lot of e-commerce copy. So I think that's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. You and your are interesting, speaking directly to people. Free, we've always known since the advent of time. Now is a really very solid inclusion in just about everything. There's something weird about it. The words now and the word stop. The word stop will actually increase somebody's attention span because we've been trained from such a young age. I mean, before you can speak, people have been saying stop or no. And sometimes it's negative reaction, but you can get people to stop, especially if stop is associated with the red color. So not that you can put colors obviously in ad copy, but this might be something that carries over to your landing page, just maintaining continuity with landing pages. What else did WordStream say on this article? Let me just click over here.